on the issues that people care about most, Donald Trump has a significant advantage. And if you look at his favorables, you look at his job approval rating, it's about 15 points higher than it was 4 years ago versus Joe Biden. Because what's happened? They've lived in Kamala Harris's world and they lived in Donald Trump's world not that long ago. They like Donald Trump's world much better.
All right, guys. Whoa. I hope you had a great weekend. Sorry. We got to stay focused. 8 days to go. The president's pollster, Jim McLaughlin, is about to join us. We have 8 days to go. We are in the final stretch. This is the big time. Huge, epic rally last night at Madison Square Garden. I'm going to get into that for a second. Congressman Mike Waltz is also here. I'll talk to you. I mean, it's great. I was in Arizona, by the way, just prior to the weekend, campaigning with President Trump, checking out the border. Early vote continues to be awesome for the Republican side. A lot to get into. Before I do that, let me just tell you about my good friend, Leo Grillo. I mean, you guys have heard me if you've watched the show. If you care about dogs and cats, if you're a rescuer of animals of any kind, if you're an animal lover of any kind, check out deltarescue.org. This is a no-kill sanctuary for life that was founded by Leo Grillo after he rescued one dog, a Doberman. He named the dog Delta, and then off to the races. He literally was like, I got to do more. And he's made it a lifelong passion to give abandoned, abused, neglected animals of all stripes the nutritional and veterinarian care they need. It's amazing what he does. Go check it out at deltarescue.org. If you can be helpful financially, this isn't a guy who is looking for a government handout or a PPE loan. It's people like me and you who care about animals, who've rescued animals, that say, I love what Leo Grillo is doing at Delta Rescue. I want to help. Go to deltarescue.org. Check out the amazing work they do, the way that this group has grown. Think about a contribution. More importantly, think about if you can make Delta Rescue part of your legacy. There's an estate planning kit tab up there. Download it. Look at it. Just do that first for me. Please just look at it. Pray on it, consider it. Think if you can make Delta Rescue part of your estate. I think there's some tax benefits you might even get too if that makes you feel better. But just take a look at it for me. DeltaRescue.org, check out the estate planning kit. All right, let's just start with the rally. Epic. What a way to kick off the final stretch. Who wasn't there? Me. But it was Speaker Johnson, Vivek, Tulsi, Don Jr., RFK, Tucker, Hulk Hogan, Dr. Phil, Lara and Eric Trump, Dana White, Elon, JD Vance, and Melania Trump. I mean, this was like some massive concert politically for the MAGA folks. The media couldn't help themselves, of course. I mean, it just, like, reporters like Tara Palmieri didn't understand why he was in New York. Well, I'll tell you why. Because by going to Madison Square Garden, everyone in the world focused on it. He got more earned media out of that one event than I think he'll get on anything. It was epic. It was iconic. And that's why it was brilliant. And that's the problem with most reporters. They don't understand it. But then Tara Palmieri goes on to start to talk about a 1939 February Nazi rally there and comparisons to it. I mean, guys, they know no length by which to attack this guy. It is so anti-Trump. And this is the problem. If you get your media from places like Puck or Tara Palmieri, it's on you. This is why this show is important. I mean, it is unbelievable what they do to go after this president. It's just pretty much crazy what happened there. I do want to tell you, though, I was out in Arizona, had a chance to go to a Trump rally. It was awesome. Got to see the president up close and personal. Unbelievable. And then I went and checked out the border. I wanted to see it firsthand while I was out there. Unbelievable. I got a great briefing from the folks in Cochise County, the sheriff's office there, Mark Daniels. This is a guy who is standing up for everything that we care about in a country. It's not a partisan thing. He is a true public servant. The people who work for him, people like Detective Cody Essery and Sergeant Tal Parker, are committed public servants that want to protect our country from drugs and human trafficking. I couldn't believe how much I got out of that. And maybe this is why the vice president doesn't want to go there, because when you see it, you realize what's going on. The cartels control the border. They're bringing in drugs. They're trafficking people. It is unbelievable. When I asked the agents, point blank, what would make a difference? Two things. One, enforce the law. It is a misdemeanor to come over the border once. It's a felony to come over twice. And they are catching people over and over and over again. Not just catching them. That's what they want. They bring people over. They smuggle people. They smuggle drugs. And then they basically say, hey, can you give us a free ride back to Mexico so we can do it over again? We are not, as a country, enforcing the law. And number two, you know what they said? Build and finish the wall. And I'll show you some of this footage here. Look at where this wall ends. And there's just tons of it sitting there. Because on January 20th, when Biden came into office, they said, stop, no more improvements. We've already paid for it. They just don't want to finish it because they hate Trump that much. They don't care about our security. It is unbelievable. I want to thank Grady Butler, the public information officer out there, for helping coordinate this. Unbelievable. Thanks to Mark Daniels, the sheriff, for this unbelievable license plate. I will tell you, you think it's real. At the rally, I met the family of Tucson native Marine Corps veteran Nicholas Quetz, who was murdered by the cartel. It was unbelievable to hear this. There are real people who are facing real consequences because of the cartel. And these people at the Cochise Sheriff's Office are fighting for us. We need to stand up, make change at this election. It is so unbelievable what is happening there. At the Trump rally that I went and spoke at a phone bank, they gave me one of these Trump Force captain hats. Thanks to everyone who's making phone calls and doing everything to get out the vote. This is critical. We cannot rest on our laurels. We need to, as the president would say, fight, 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 finish strong, leave nothing on the field, make this all happen. We've got a huge election night planned for you. Subscribe now. Well, this is going to be epic. So Jim McLaughlin, the president's pollster, is here. I want to get to him in just a second. Before we do that, I want to tell you, if you think you know who's going to win and want to make a bet, guess what? You finally now have a way to do that. Bet on all of this stuff. The presidential race, the House and Senate. There is a legal way to do this. It's called Kalshi, Kalshi. It's created by two MIT engineers. So you can join hundreds of thousands of people who have put already $1 billion down on various things. If you think that Trump is going to win, you can double your money right now by placing a bet on him. If you think Kamala is, well, you're wrong, but go ahead, it's your money, do what you want. Put your money where your mouth is, where your lawn sign is, where your posts are. Go give Kalshi a try. You can use my link at Kalshi, KALSHI.com/spicer. The first 500 people who do that, if you deposit $100, you get 20 in credits. I mean, that's pretty amazing. So go to Kalshi.com, KALSHI.com, and deposit $100, you get 20 back. All right. Without further ado, the president's pollster, Mr. Jim McLaughlin. All right, Jim, I'm looking for some good news. Thanks for being with us.
You know, sometimes the news is too good. I wish the election was today, Sean.
Oh, no, okay. But first of all, you went. This is your neck of the woods. Just tell me, you've been involved in politics a long time.
Yeah.
What was that? There's just something I kept saying to people. This is iconic. This is epic. And when I watched it, I was like, Madison Square Garden, and the line. I mean, tell me what it was like for you.
I got to tell you, Sean, I wasn't going to go. All right, because we're busy. I'm up. I'm dealing with about 22 minutes sleep from last night. And Jason Miller said you have to go. Our mutual friend Jason Miller says you have to go to this rally, and I am so glad I did, because just the energy and the excitement of these people. Look, I'm just a shanty Irish kid that was born in the Bronx, and to be able to share in the enthusiasm and what the Democrats and their and the minions in the media don't give Donald Trump credit for. You know what he's doing? He's giving the forgotten men and women of this country hope. That's what those rallies are all about. I mean,
I was just so epic. I mean, everybody was there. I was like, I know. And I just come from a Trump rally in Arizona. I'm like, I can't turn around and do it.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, what a night. All right, let's get it.
All the political Avengers were there.
I know. And Melania out at the end. I'm like, that's the October surprise.
And God bless Melania, because you know what she does? She knows what her most important job is right now. It's raising Barron. She's a mom. Yeah. And she picks her spots.
I know. And that was the spot.
Yeah. And you could just feel the passion there, because the left and the media, they left, oh, where's Melania? Does she support him? Are you kidding?
And what?
She's
Not
all
just that. If you watch them interact last night, I've said this to wild people who question whenever that comes up. I'm like, watch them interact. That
yes.
it was the smile on her face, and she was so proud of her husband. All right, time is short because I only have so much time. Let's get into your wheelhouse, the state of the race. Where are we now? Right now.
Look, you think back, you look, and about a month ago, folks were telling us that Donald Trump was behind. We didn't really feel that. We didn't see it in the polls. But if you look at the media polls, and I'm not really allowed to talk about the internal polls, but look at the media polls, and not a lot of movement, but now basically all the battleground states, Donald Trump is ahead in all the battleground
Yeah.
states. And it's the kind of movement that you see, and you always want at the end of a race, you always want the momentum to be on your side. And with a week to go, all the signs, all the signals are not just pointing to Donald Trump, but they're pointing to the Republicans in these all-important Senate and congressional battleground races where he is doing significantly better.
Can I
And
ask you that real quick? So I feel good about the Senate. I get asked a lot about the House. You guys keep up with that because of the clients you have. How do you feel about maintaining the House?
look, I think it's what makes it tough is the Democrats, and this hasn't really been reported on a lot. They have drastically outspent Republicans. Like
Yeah.
one of the races I'm working on, he's a good friend of mine, Mike Lawler, who I've known for probably the last 10, 15 years, in New York 17. This is a district where Democrats outnumber Republicans by 14 points. Joe Biden in 2020 won the district by 10 points. And you really have one of these squad radical left-wing Democrats in Mondaire Jones that there's no way this guy should be in the race. And Mike Lawler's ahead. He's ahead by every single measure, but yet he's still outspending Mike Lawler by significant amounts of money. And Mike Lawler is one of the best Republican fundraisers.
Yeah.
So
Well, he hustles too. That guy,
yeah,
you can't outwork Mike Lawler. I mean, I'm
nobody
telling you.
nobody works as hard as Mike Lawler. He's always out there, and he fits the district perfectly in terms of the issues. But again, they have limitless amounts of money. And, we all know that Nancy Pelosi is the one pulling the strings, even though Hakeem Jeffries has the title. The reason why Nancy Pelosi has the power, she raises all the money for all these Democrats. Right. And I think it's kind of, who knows where all this money is coming from when it's all said and done as they run it through Act Blue and everything else that's going on. But there is not one, whether it's a battleground Senate race that I'm working on or a battleground congressional, where the Republican is outspending the Democrat. And usually in most of these districts, you have somebody like Carrie Lake. Carrie Lake, the Democrats they've outspent her by over $100 million. And yet she's still in the ball game here at the end. She's within the margin of error in the last media poll that I just saw.
All right. So it seems to me that down the stretch, I mean, Kamala Harris is going to the Ellipse, the National Mall tomorrow, the site of where Trump's, January 6th rally was. Clearly that they think that this issue of democracy gives them some legs. So this is how I think the race is framed. This is Donald Trump talking about the economy, inflation, immigration, border security versus her talking about abortion and democracy. Yeah. Is that a fair, and what issue set is winning out?
Yeah. And don't forget, Nazi and fascism, which even you've had, Kamala Harris's super PAC is saying, don't do that. Don't go there.
Right.
It's literally insulting the intelligence of the American people. Because, Sean, you laid it out. The problem is for the Democrats, the issues that the American people care about most, inflation, the economy, border security, crime, Donald Trump has significant advantages over the Democrats. And I thought, look, you look at the public polls. It's a bipartisan poll, the Wall Street Journal poll, where Kamala Harris has a 54% disapproval rating in that poll, and Donald Trump has a 52% approval rating. So what that's all about is on the issues that people care about most, Donald Trump has a significant advantage. And if you look at his favorables, you look at his job approval rating, it's about 15 points higher than it was 4 years ago versus Joe Biden. Because what's happened? They've lived in Kamala Harris's world and they lived in Donald Trump's world not that long ago. They like Donald Trump's world much better.
Yeah, well, I thought last night he talks about this proposal to give tax breaks to people who care for an elderly person at home.
I'm announcing a new policy today that I will support a tax credit for family caregivers who take care of a parent or a loved one. It's about time that they were recognized, right?
He keeps hitting on issues, right? The no tax on tip, the no tax on Social Security, the no tax on unemployment, writing off the cost of a new American car, right? And it's all in his, it just seems to me all of these issues are exactly things that people care about. Now, that big thing last night, I know got overshadowed a little because the media didn't want to cover it, but this no tax on caring for a person at home, huge. Those got to test fantastically.
Sean, we've all been there. And I remember when the issue came up where he was going to say no taxes on tips. When he came out with that, you know, the polling team, myself, I'm talking to my brother John, Tony Fabrizio, we're like, did we test this? And we're like, no. He was talking to his staff out at the hotel in Las Vegas because they're saying we shouldn't have taxes on tips. And he said, that's Donald Trump. You know what he doesn't get credit for? And you know this, having worked so closely with him. He talks to people all day, and he's a great listener. So this is him talking to friends and saying, hey, you know what? It's really hard when you have to take care of, you know, an older loved one. We've all been there. And that's Donald Trump, because they're talking about, okay, how do you make childcare more affordable? How do you make home health care more affordable? And he knows the best way to do it isn't through the government, but it's through basically the family. And let's try to make it easier on the family to be able to do that.
Yeah. You know, we were mentioning the Madison Square Garden lineup last night, right? When you guys look at favorability and people who move people, whatever, I feel like the use of surrogates has been better on the Trump side, right? Yeah. So he got Bobby Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, amongst others, Dr. Phil last night. And I kind of think that those aren't necessarily traditional. I mean, obviously Bobby's political, right?
Yeah.
But more people follow him because of MAGA stuff, wellness issues, health issues, than they do for politics, because he never had run for politics, right? And so I think that they bring their constituency over to Trump, whereas the Harris surrogates are inherently political people. So, I mean, do you guys look at that in terms of who is more effective surrogate-wise?
Without a doubt. And look at it. She's bringing out all these establishment types, the people that are responsible for the failures. You know, you talk about RFK Jr. I come from a family of Kennedy Democrats, and most New Yorkers back in the day, they were these conservative Catholic Democrats. The only picture in my grandparents' house who wasn't related to me was Robert F. Kennedy Jr., with Robert F. Kennedy and John F. Kennedy.
Right.
And while they're talking to all these establishment Hollywood types that say, you know, this is a change election, and she's talking to the people that have created the problems. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has all these Democratic surrogates out there. He's got black folks. He's got brown folks. And I'm telling you, I'm telling you right now, one of the historic things of this election is going to be, Sean, and the reason why Donald Trump is doing so well in Nevada and the reason why he's doing so well in Arizona is because of Hispanic voters. And I'm telling you, black and brown folks are literally going to save America in this election. I truly believe that. And the reason why, you know where Donald Trump's up the most in the battleground states? In Georgia and North Carolina. Why? Because of black voters.
All right, I want to get into the battleground states real quick. I want to ask you, though, the media is obsessed with the gender gap, right? Men, a lot of the media strategy seems to be focused on young men, Kamala going after women. Talk about where the gender gap right now is.
Yep. And no, you know who has the real gender gap? Kamala Harris and the Democrats, because men are abandoning them in droves. And again, they're seeing, one of the things I always hear in the focus groups, when we do focus groups among black men, what black men will say to you is, how come they're taking care of illegal immigrants? How come they're giving their welfare benefits and meanwhile they're doing nothing to help us? And you see it. You see it a lot of times when they do the focus groups on TV. These same black men will say, hey, when Donald Trump was president, I was more safe. When Donald Trump was president, I had more money in my pocket.
Yep.
Donald Trump wants to give me school choice. Because it's like I say to people, they say, why is Donald Trump getting all these black and brown folks to vote for him? I said, for the same reason why white middle-class Americans are voting for him, because they think he's better on these issues that they really care about. And that's the interesting part. You set it up before. She's going to be doing this establishment type rally, January 6th, Nazi, fascist, all that other kind of stuff. The American people have moved on for that. It's about their personal benefit. Who do you think can make your life better? And what you're seeing is people. I talked to some of my son's friends yesterday. They spent 7.5. These are guys, 25, 26 years old. They were in that line for 7.5 hours. They are
Oh
not
my gosh.
political types to go see Donald Trump. And I'm like, was it worth it? And they said it was unbelievable. They loved the rally. And this is Donald Trump giving the American people hope.
I think so. Let me ask you this. There's an analysis out there. We can put the chart up that says if the polls are off like they were in 2022, she wins. If the polls were off like they were in 2024, he wins big time.
Yeah.
So which one is right?
Look, I'm going to say this, and you might be surprised because I'm supposed to say all those media polls stink.
Yeah.
The pollsters have gotten a little bit better, the media pollsters. They're still not great. The major thing they did, whether it was 2016 back in 2020, they were significantly undersampling Republicans. They're doing a little bit better on that. But what I always tell people, and look, Sean, you know me as a pollster. We've been working on campaigns together for years. Forget about the polls. That's what I'm telling people. Forget about the polls. Turn out the vote. Vote early. What these polls say is Donald Trump has the momentum. But look, at this point in time, when Mitt Romney was running against Barack Obama, Mitt Romney probably would have won. But then in the last week, you had Hurricane Sandy. You had Barack Obama was hugging Chris Christie on the beat, and the momentum changed. And he looked bipartisan. He looked like he was in charge. A lot can change in the last week of the campaign. The Obama campaign was really good at turning out low propensity Democratic voters. That's what we need to do at this point. And look, we can't relax. I tell people, don't bring one person, don't bring two people. You got to bring 10 people to the polls, and especially people that may not ordinarily vote, because right now it's not just a persuasion game with those few undecideds. And trust me, there are some undecideds that are out there, but now it's a turnout game. We've got to make sure that we turn our folks out. And what she's going to do tomorrow, she's going to be attacking Americans, saying that you're a Nazi, you're a fascist, if you disagree with her on the issues. And I think her super PAC is right. It's going to backfire on them.
I'm glad you said that. I said that we have this morning meeting every morning with Mark Halpern and Dan Turntine. And I said, the problem is this is the deplorables of 2016.
Yes.
She's insulting people on the right, which gets me and you and everyone else fired up saying, all right, let's just show you you're wrong. And I don't think it helps convert anybody. The people who believe that already are voting for him. You mentioned a couple battleground states and how they were doing. Of the 7, do you think that Georgia, is your analysis based on what you said a minute ago? Should I interpret that as Georgia's the best one of the 7 for him to win?
I feel really good about Georgia. And one of the reasons
better than Arizona?
One of the reasons I feel good about Georgia, and by the way, I feel good about Arizona.
Okay.
For two different reasons. Georgia, because of what we're doing among black voters. And I think he's going to keep that percentage of the black vote. It's one of the reasons, why the Republicans did as well as they did in Florida last time, was because they did well with black voters. I always worry about Fulton County and the kind of shenanigans that go on there in Fulton County. And look, people ask me, why are you worried? You got Brian Kemp there and people are watching this time and there's a lot more ballot security. These are the same people that tried to put Donald Trump in jail. So that's why I worry about Fulton County. Arizona, what makes me optimistic about Arizona isn't just what I'm seeing in the polls, but right now, when it comes to early voting, Republicans are +7 in terms of, they're, what that means to a layperson is we're having 7% more Republicans are turning out than Democrats. And what's happened down there is Arizona has gotten buried. Their quality of life has been destroyed by the open borders policies of not just Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, but also Katie Hobbs. She's let it happen.
Yeah.
Where Greg Abbott, right next door in Texas, has tried to fight back. In Arizona, they're just saying, come on in. And it's hurting all aspects of their quality of life. And they know it. And I'm telling you, I'm not guaranteeing victory in New Mexico, but I'm telling you.
I want to get to that in a second. Oh,
Yeah.
Just hold on. But let me just, of the 7, obviously Georgia, Arizona feel good on. And I'm just saying, if you had to be worried of one of the 7, what one would you say, this is the one where I'm a little worried for a variety of reasons? What would that be?
Is probably at the most, and it's a place I think we should win because I think public opinion is clearly on our side there, is Pennsylvania. And you're saying, well, why are you worrying about Pennsylvania? When I'm looking, and look, we're doing about 20 points better when it comes to the early vote compared to where we were last time, but we're still down by about 30 points there in terms of who the early votes are. Now, like I said, first of all, Dave McCormick is running an unbelievable Senate campaign. He is out of central casting in terms of that. He's way better than Bob Casey ever could. I mean, literally, he's a businessman. He's an American hero, Army Ranger, all that other kind of good stuff. And, he's just been fantastic. But again, you worry about the things that go on in Philadelphia. And I was on the air on Newsmax at 9:30 at night on election night 4 years ago when they said they're stopping the count. I'm like, at 9:30 at night? It's like, what the heck is going on there? And look, forget about what went on there. They have a great ability to be able to manufacture these vote by mails in a place like Pennsylvania. Right. So as the president says, we got to make it too big to rig.
That's right. You mentioned New Mexico. 4 states that I think people are looking at: Minnesota, New Hampshire, Virginia, and New Mexico. I have been preaching New Hampshire for a while. I got mocked for it. Now we got a public poll showing him up 0.4, not a lot, but that's clearly within the margin of error. And then he's going to New Mexico. How realistic are any of those 4 states?
I think if we have the turnout that we think we have the ability to get, and if you look at the momentum here, and look, a place like New Hampshire, they've gotten killed with the higher energy costs because of the crazy policies of Kamala Harris. And they're also a very anti-tax state, as you know.
Right.
But what's kind of happened in New Hampshire is, unfortunately, some of these folks have left Massachusetts. They go to New Hampshire because they have no income tax. And unfortunately, they bring some of the ways they vote with them. But look, I think both New Hampshire and New Mexico, and very different, because you're going to have a lot of these anti-tax voters in New Hampshire that are probably going to hopefully vote Republican this time. And then in a place like New Mexico, I think you're going to have a lot of Hispanics who, by the way, can't stand these open border policies of Kamala Harris, because literally they came here to be Americans. And I can't tell you how many times when I do focus groups among Hispanic voters where they tell you that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the Democrats, they sound like these, dictatorships, whether it's the Castro brothers or Maduro or Ortega, that they left. They want to put their heads down here. They work their tails off. They want to send their kids to school, and they want to be safe, and they want to worship God. Right. And they look at the Democrats now, and that's not where the Democratic Party is.
Jim McLaughlin, thank you for being with us. Always appreciate your insight, and we'll chat hopefully before this thing is official on Election Day. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. And Sean, I'd feel a lot better about things if you were still working with us on the campaign.
No. You guys got it. All right,
we miss you.
All right, thank you. All right, great conversation with Jim. We've got Congressman Mike Waltz on tap from Florida. He was at Madison Square Garden. I want to get his take on things. Before I do that, quickly, tomorrow, James Blair, the political director of the Trump campaign, he's going to join us and give us an update where they are state by state. James Blair tomorrow. You're not going to want to miss that. Before I bring in Congressman Mike Waltz, if you are as jacked up as I am, then you maybe started your morning with Wire to Fish. Don't go to Starbucks. Go make a cup of coffee with Wire to Fish. This is a great, great company. The beans are sourced from Guatemala and Mexico. It's an amazing cup of coffee. But better than that, because I know a lot of people make a great cup of coffee. Wire to Fish has got amazing Arabica beans from Guatemala and Mexico, as I said. But guess what's even better? 25% of their profits go to faith-based causes and clean water initiatives. So instead of just having a great cup of coffee, you're actually supporting a great cause, things that are near and dear to us. Support things that matter to us. Go to wired2fishcoffee.com. Wired the numeral 2 coffee, wired2fishcoffee.com. Use code WeCare for 15% off. I'm going to tell you, it's a win-win. Great coffee, great causes. Wired2fishcoffee.com. All right, now let's bring in Congressman Mike Waltz of Florida. Congressman, good to see you. Congrats on the book.
Hey, thanks, Sean. Go Army.
Oh, God. You know, I did. All right,
Right
I'm
out
just
the
going to
gate.
let that go. You know what? I wanted to be nice. I wanted to say, okay, fine. This is where we are. I thought we'd be on the same team, at least for the next 8 days. All right, I want to break this down into both the policy and the personal, because I love the read. I don't mean to make this all about the Navy and the SEALs, but did you read Dan Crenshaw's book before you wrote this?
Don't tell Dan, but I listened to about half of it.
No. Anyway,
I loved his personal story in there.
right. The reason I bring this up is not to make it a Navy SEAL thing. But I found you guys had a lot of similarities and from a very different perspective. But I was just kind of drawn as I was thinking. I was like, okay, that's interesting. Obviously, difference.
Yeah, like channeling my inner Navy SEAL, I thought it was a bit more like Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership, where, each chapter you're in combat, you learn a lesson from that painful experience. In his case, he applied it to business, and mine to this new kind of combat I'm in, which is politics.
I love the hat tip you gave to the Navy on page 92. You write, unless otherwise directed. And I was like, it's so true. Like this idea that people give people that you are that are subordinate to you directions and then trust the judgment and the training that they've been given to execute.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, back in the day of the sailing ship, right? You had no radio, no internet, obviously. You gave the ship captain, the fleet commander, the strategic vision. The Great White Fleet, for example, in the late 19th century, and guardrails and guidance, and then let them go. Let your subordinates do the job. And I echo that again in bottoms-up leadership, where as senior leaders, we should be about providing strategy, vision, and then resources to achieve it. Stop micromanaging by literally. I've had situations where generals were giving me guidance on where to place my men because they could see over, the all-seeing eye of predator drones and what have you, and it actually hurts the mission when you're trying to micromanage in the way that we often find our Pentagon doing today.
Yeah. It was interesting, though, because you tell the story about taking action, decisions, leadership. I mean, kind of how you made decisions about what to do as a Green Beret. And there was a line that stuck out to me early on in the book where you write, what if we don't take action, right? You were faced with these situations. One involved taking out a young child that was being used as a spotter and could, anyway.
Yeah.
The line, again, that line stuck out to me. What if we don't take action? And obviously this is initially in the context of your military leadership. And then you segue into your role as a member of Congress. And I couldn't help but get that line out of my head because I kept thinking to myself, the threat that China poses, the threat that the deficit continues and the debt continue to be to our nation. And I ask this so many times, Congressman, of people that come on the show. It's like there's this cycle of the fiscal year comes up and then we can't pass the budget and then we do a continuing resolution, we kick the can. And I kept going back in my head to what if we don't take action? Yeah. Why is it different now? Why aren't some of these folks standing up and saying, guys, I'm not going home. I'm not going to just come home, vote. But I'm going to stand up to cut some spending to do the right thing against China. But I don't know. That line stuck in my head because as a military leader, it's one thing. But as a member of Congress, it's almost like they go, hey, we tried. Sorry.
No, look, Sean, it's rampant in Washington. It's rampant in our military now, because taking bold action, putting your neck out there, and taking the arrows that comes with it, or guess what? Sometimes you might be wrong. Sometimes you might miss. So the default action with our all-career military, or the default action in Washington, becomes inaction. Kind of keep the lights on, keep getting reelected, keep the same old status quo. And it's one of the many reasons I am so forcefully behind Donald J. Trump, because he doesn't give a damn. He's going to break some China. He's going to create a new branch of the military like the Space Force, even though the generals hate it. He's going to pivot on China. He's going to say we can have peace in the Middle East if you just focus on Iran rather than the Palestinian
and I agree
issue,
with you.
and on.
Having worked for Trump, I tell people this. I was in Arizona over the weekend. I was telling these folks this story of him, when it came to trade deals and everything else. Yeah, he was not afraid to break glass. He was like, screw it. I'm not, just because that's how it used to be. But why aren't the members of Congress taking his lead and saying, all right, I see what Donald Trump's doing. I'll stand up and I'll take on China. I'll take on these issues. I feel like it's these, everyone's willing to say, yeah, Trump did it, and we point to him, but where's the congressional leadership willingness to fight?
Well, I'm not going to make excuses, Sean, but I'll tell you the setup, at least in the House, where you've got 220 direct reports, any one of which can fire you if they don't agree with your play call, is making it pretty tough on anybody that gets in there. We have to get back to, we have our internal debates. They get ugly, they get tough, but when we make the call as a conference, particularly on the Republican side, then that's the direction we go. And you get too many of those calls bad, then you fire them. But
fair enough.
But
don't you think, fair enough,
yeah.
I get the system sucks and the majority is thin, right? And why we need a bigger majority in the next Congress. But at the end of the day, don't you think the leadership should say, all right, Congressman Waltz and you other direct reports, we have an existential threat. China wants to take us over economically and militarily. Our deficit is out of control. We need to exhibit some leadership. But at some point, you gave the example of the generals. Like at some point you say, hey guys, if you're not going to lead, then we need new leaders.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think you're going to see that come this new Congress.
Do you think that's why? I mean, I've told some folks that I think we need Donald Trump as the leader to tell the Congress, guys, here are the battles that we need to fight because they won't do it themselves. Do you think that's a fair analysis?
Well, look, I mean, when you get the president in place and the commander in chief, he doesn't have just those two roles. He has the leadership mantle of the party. And I think absolutely right after November 5th, we all sit down. Here's the play call. Here's the priorities. And we get behind it and we move out. And we've got to get back to, I'll take 80% today rather than 100% floundering around never. And so it's going to take some, think and lead like a Green Beret kind of mindset as well, rather than being purist, all or nothing, or I take my toys and go home.
Yeah, the problem is I read books at night before I go to bed, and your book got me fired up. I kept thinking, I was like, all right, let's go charge.
It didn't put you to sleep.
Take the hill. No, I know. You could read it. I've got 4 books out there that will put you to sleep. This one gets you going. Do you think, though, that we are, like, our military, are you concerned? I mean, you talk about leadership, you talk about some of the actions you took. By the way, I think some of the history in here, in terms of how close we've come to real war in the past and how a single person's decision, I learned a lot. I'm telling you, this book is great. It's a great read. I can't put it down. And I thought that the historical perspectives were good too. But do you think that we as a country, from a military perspective, have the readiness we need to take on and hopefully avert any kind of action with China?
No, we don't right now. And this is truly keeps me up at night. We don't have, we've slid away the last 4 years of being a meritocracy. Actually, that slide has been happening for some time, with social justice being as important as anything else with this leadership. We've slid away from accountability. George C. Marshall fired over 240 generals when he came in on the eve of World War II. And oh, by the way, speaking truth to power, he convinced FDR not to do massive defense cuts in 1939. I talk about that conversation in the book. And then finally, everything we buy in the Pentagon seems to cost twice as much, take twice as long, and deliver half as much as our soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen deserve.
Yeah.
But it all roots into a culture of accountability. No one gets fired in that building. Everybody stumbles upward perpetually, despite billions wasted. 40% of our submarines can't get out of the repair yard. The Joint Strike Fighter, our most expensive, stealthiest platform ever, has a 29% full mission capable rate. It's totally unacceptable. But where's the accountability for that?
Yeah. You talked about taking 80%, and I agree with you. It's like sometimes we just got to move the ball down the field. If you can get 80%, 90%, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the really good. And it was interesting because this is something, again, that I thought was fascinating, how you talk about your experience of restraint, right? Knowing when to push the envelope. Your interactions with some Taliban leaders, etc. But you wrote this: the leader who demonstrates restraint and steps out of that escalation ladder is doing something both radically counterculture and genuinely attractive. Yet that's not what's happening in politics, is it? I mean, I think that it's all or nothing. We got to go after everything, but you talk about it from a military perspective, obviously.
But I'll give you two Trump examples. He stepped out of the escalation ladder with Hillary Clinton, despite the fact she had blatantly violated the National Archives law, had tens of thousands of emails, dozens of highly classified, compartmented emails on her own server that could have and may have been hacked by foreign powers. He said, you know what, we're going to move forward as a country. And unlike Biden, he didn't prosecute her once he controlled the levels of power. And then I talk about how he de-escalated with Iran. Yeah. They attacked our international shipping. They attacked international oil. They shot down one of our drones. John Bolton was losing his mind to hit back. It wasn't until they crossed a red line, stormed our embassy, and killed an American, that he said, all right, targeted application of power, take out the field general Soleimani, no collateral damage, and restored stability. So you have the judgment to know restraint, restraint, restraint. But you know what? Enough is enough. I'm actually going to enforce red lines, unlike Obama, and hit back.
Yeah, like I said, the stories in here make you realize how important restraint at the right moment can be because of how close we've come to war. I don't want to give too much away because it's worth the read and understanding. I know that you were at that Madison Square Garden last night. I mean, I honestly don't get FOMO, fear of missing out, much, but I was watching you and others at that event and I was like, God, if there's an event I wanted to be at, but I was in Arizona, there was no way I could make the turn. How awesome and iconic was that last night?
Honestly, as a Floridian, I kind of didn't get I'll be honest, I didn't get the big deal. Okay, I love Trump rallies, but, talking to the family and just kind of what this meant to the Trump family, what it meant to him. But the thing that really kind of attracted me to make the trip was just a few months ago, I was sitting behind President Trump in a crappy little New York courtroom watching Biden's number 3 DOJ official sit next to Alvin Bragg, trying to put the man in jail for an accounting dispute. So to go from that to then this, and you did miss out, Sean. I'm sorry to rub it in, brother. It was, there's kind of that rally vibe, but this was just off the charts. I thought the roof was going to come off when Melania introduced him.
I literally was special. Like, I was watching that thing and I went, oh my God, like this, I can't believe that didn't get more play. I know that the media probably hated that, but I'm telling you, like, you know how like some concerts, like they have like every act lineup. It's like, usually a charity event, Farm Aid, Live Aid, all those things where everyone plays. Last night, I felt like that was like the MAGA version of that. It was Elon Musk, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Dr. Phil. I was like, every time somebody else came out, I went, oh my gosh. Anyway, Congressman, congrats on the book. It's Hard Truth, Think and Lead Like a Green Beret. I'm telling you, it's appropriate. There are certain things that come out at the right time. And this book is what we need to be reading right now as we head into a Trump victory. And we got to know, what is our focus? What do we need to accomplish? And when do we need to exhibit restraint?
and how to think differently about our nation and the world. And Sean, just real quick, none of my proceeds, all of my proceeds will go to the family of one of my Green Berets that I lost, the Matthew Pacino Foundation. So everybody get out there and get one. It's going to go into a good cause.
Well, great read, good cause. Congressman, thanks for writing this. Thanks for being with us. And we'll see you after the election. Appreciate you being with us.
All right. Go Navy, Sean.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, great conversation tomorrow. The president's political director, James Blair, is back with us. You're not going to want to miss that. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification button. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.